everybody, and welcome to the Prep Phase podcast brought to you by Predator Gaming. It's time for our second episode. So many of you responded to our first one that was clipped into two different pieces. So we got a lot of feedback on both of them. So thank you very much for that. Hopefully, you'll join us in for some more fun on episode 2. I'm your host, Milosh. With me are my two guests. I guess we'd like to call everybody friends of the show at this point. So welcome, friends of the show, XRTROIKA and Demo. Lads, how you doing?
Thank you very much, Milosh. Thrilled to be here. It's not actually too long since we sat down as a three and had a conversation, especially in and around this week of Siege and what we've recently seen. And it's exciting to be back. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's back again with another podcast. I can never escape this never-ending cycle of podcasts. I've just been headlocked by them for the past, about 3 years now, and I'm still here, and it's a new one now. God, this must be the 10th one, I think, out of my history now.
This is the official, unofficial one that we're in, of course, brought to you by our great sponsor, Predator Gaming, that make it all happen. And like you both were saying, there has been a lot to talk about in podcasts, on Twitter, on every single point of social media there is out there, because the 6 Charlotte Major just ended. By the time this is out for the public to see, especially this first segment of the show, it had already been a few days since the end of the show or the end of the major itself. And I mean, to nobody's surprise, I guess not to mine, that's for sure, NA has won. I know, we believed, but North America has gone through. DarkZero are victorious, and that's obviously our first topic to go through today. We got wonderful guests to talk about, to talk with, especially later in our second half of the podcast. But DarkZero victory. Did this go through with your predictions, X and Demo? Because you guys were doing predictions every single day, right?
I don't think there's no Demo. I don't think there's actually any record of our predictions. So they didn't exist.
I was there. What are you talking about? I know that there's a record.
We weren't alone, realistically. I really don't think that we were alone in doubting and almost just writing DarkZero off in this major. It was, a fairly sort of widespread consensus, and it wasn't necessarily a slight or a diss against them as a team. It was more, look at the other teams that are going and look at, like, these guys are sort of storming into Charlotte in a ball of flames. You've got Heroic stomping EU, W7M stomping LATAM, and you just didn't really think that it was necessarily on the cards for little old DarkZero to plod the way through and to make it all the way to the grand finals and win the thing. So I don't think that I don't think that we can be sort of told off for that, if you will, Milosh. Don't put us on blast, please. Don't put me on blast.
We'll see about it. Demo, what about your predictions for all this?
Again, similar to what Ollie said, I think if you looked at that Group C, probably the toughest group going into that event by far, in my eyes, was that group. Like Ollie said, you've got Heroic, who were top in the pops. Inside of Europe, you would have thought that they'd come in, kind of bring that same form, maybe even do better in a LAN environment, who knows? You got W7M, who has literally had the biggest jump in form I've ever seen, I think, of any team in this game. Never would you say that a team who almost got relegated last season would then go and finish first in their next stage. Never been done. So I think you have to give them just that bit, just that run of form. Doesn't matter if W7M, if the form then started to deteriorate as we go into stage 2, but as long as they had that form going into the event, that's all that mattered to them. You got G2. You think of the caliber of those players. You think of the history that all those players know what it's like to win on these big stages. And then you've got DZ, who, let's be honest, just about got into the top 4 in NA, just about got into that event, has never had a good track record of events. I've only really had, that one grand final all the way back in Japan during 2019. And then other than that, it's just a couple of 8th place finishes. That's all you can say about DZ. There wasn't really much going for them. And yeah, like Ollie said, I don't know if we can be faulted for that.
I actually agree with you. You really cannot be faulted for it. Who would have thought that an EU team would love to throw game after game after game and map after map?
Which one?
I was going to say, you take your pick here.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, we will definitely dig into this in just a bit, because DarkZero winning all of this, I know it might be a surprise for a lot of people, but good for them, good for Canadian, of course, who has earned yet another trophy to put on his on the pedestal. And now DarkZero it's taken 2 years for a big trophy to be added now to the, I guess, trophy space that they may or may not have in DarkZero. It's going to have something very important that they won the first major back with an audience. That is pretty important. And the first major in North America since Raleigh. We're not going to count Montreal because Canada might as well be another universe at this point. And I wish we all were there, to be honest, all three of us, because then we could speak about things in a different way. But even from home, because we're really watching through it, co-streaming also during the week, hearing that crowd roaring, especially when you got North American teams, I honestly, it could not get any better than DarkZero versus Astralis in a grand final in North America with an NA crowd. That everybody was on their feet. I loved it. Over 2,000 fans stocked, all full in Charlotte.
I think that when I was watching day one and I was watching the sort of opening ceremony, if you will, of the whole event, I'm not sure if the crowd were ready for Iain.
No, Iain is a champ.
Iain is incredible, and we've worked with him a couple of times on some sort of national stuff inside of the UK, and then on some Challenger League stuff. And we're actually really good friends as well. Like, we'll hop in a voice call and stuff like that, and we'll have like a bit of a natter between us. And we even get, we'll drag Demo in there as well. When we were in Paris, we were dragging Demo here, there, and everywhere. He's one of the most infectious and fun people that I've ever met. And I don't think that crowd was ready for that kind of hype, because I know that it's sort of, we know that American fans and stuff like that, and particularly when you start dealing with like big audiences and big stage, they get rowdy, they get hyped. Yeah. Like that's what it's all about. It's about that sort of over the top excitement. And Iain brings it, but in like a slightly different way. And you could almost see that the crowd were a bit like, this isn't like usual, like this is going to be a bit different this weekend. And then by the end of it, it was just electric. And you get to see a couple of like the behind the scenes videos of like stuff that we don't get to see as the viewer at home. It doesn't get sent out on Twitch, because it's an entirely different experience when you are there all the time. You don't just close your eyes when the cameras stop rolling and, open them again after the break. You're literally there the whole time. And there's things going on in that moment as well. I think that it looked electric, and it was probably a good job, to be honest, that we got a couple of NA teams in the grand finals, because it really built into that. And I think it was just a great storyline overall. The scriptwriters have done fantastic.
A demo? Yeah, you seem to have something to say.
I don't see. I'm on the fence because I don't know if I want to praise Iain. I don't know if I should give him it. I don't know
why.
Wow.
Iain is cool.
It's so difficult because I can't give him that. Just because it's Iain. Just because it is Iain.
Why? That's just wrong. Come on.
That's the relationship me and Iain have. That's just it. No.
It was supposed to be. Look, even for me, I was supposed to be there, and then I couldn't. And I was so happy when Faceit told me, hey, we understand the situation. We just really would like to have someone. And they let me know that it's Iain. And for me, this is just, oh my God. I've heard so much about Iain and seen so much of him in Siege and Valorant and so many other games that he's kind of into and hosting around. I want to see him with this crowd, because they definitely will not be ready after I've heard all the stories from both of you. And on the first day, it's Friday. Fridays for main events, there's not a ton of people.
Yeah.
It's when there's the weekend, the Saturday, the Sunday, that's when it's really full. And my God, it was fantastic. It was infectious, even though we're 4,000 miles away from the venue itself. Completely worth it. Loved it. UK Major win demo.
That's another thing that we have to get onto. And I think if you think that's what Iain's like in front of an NA crowd, God help us what he would do in his own country. Iain is a nutcase from all accounts. What you see is what you get. What you see on stage is what you get outside of stage. Me and Ollie know that all too well. I remember whenever Iain said, yeah, he's going to it, he was nervous. He was very,
I
you know, he was
understand that.
obviously.
I think if you're not nervous, you're on the wrong stage.
I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%.
He's nervous going into it. The guy hasn't stage hosted an esport event since the first one he did back in Manchester 2019.
19, yeah.
Something like that. So it's been a long time since Iain was able to do stage hosting. I never had any worries with him. No, never any worries whatsoever. He can be nervous as much as he wants. I know he'll go in there and he'll do his job. And he's done that to the best that he possibly could. I think he left it all out there. Why am I talking as if he just played like 90 minutes for Champions League final? What was why I'm talking about him there? No, but no,
it does feel like it.
Yeah. I love
on stage for those like 10-15 minutes. It feels like you've gone through an entire football game that you played, because especially when you're anxious and you have to deal with all of that, that goes for talent, that goes for players, that goes even for a lot of audience members, because let's keep in mind, this is the first time a lot of people in the audience have ever been to an event like this. So you don't know how to like properly get into it. Right?
And that's where Iain's so good, because I think Iain is so comfortable. That's the kind of, I think he's the host that you can just take to immediately. So comfy. You know, I think the best way to sum up Iain was he goes on the Sunday for signing sessions, and then he got people to sign him.
I know.
He wanted their like.
I saw that. It was mental.
That's the best way to sum up Iain. He's not there for him. He's there for everyone else's entertainment. That's why he cares about everyone else. That's just the way he is. And I think as well for Iain, obviously going in as a host role, and Iain, he does a lot of different things. Busy guy. Doesn't have the same intellect of Siege as much as what some of the usuals do compared to people who play it every single day. But Iain is always looking for storylines. He's always looking for what's the main gist. He'll go and ask everyone. He'll do his interviews. He'll do his prep. He's very, very thorough. All because he maybe doesn't know the same caliber of other people doesn't mean he still can't go and deliver the same caliber as if he did. The guy's still very ready for it. You know, he's meticulous in that. He's always wanting to know as much as he can.
And I completely echo that. If someone is also going into like different projects and all, be like going to a space that you're not an expert in, it's daunting. You're anxious because you're like, oh my god, do my 30 pages of preparation are there enough for what I'm trying to do when it's just like
he doesn't need to be intellectual. You know, he's a stage host. He like the whole thing about stage host, in my opinion, is you are there to get emotions, feelings, and hyping everything up.
Yeah.
Let the desk deal with the, oh, look at this breakdown. Oh, tell me about this play. That's one thing I want the Dean to stay away from. Let the desk do that. Just all I want to know is, how are these people feeling? That's all I want to hear. The trash talk. I want to hear all that. Leave that.
Oh, that Canadian interview.
That's what Iain needs to do. I think that's the perfect way to do it.
Trust the process. Okay, trust the process.
Is get that energy out of the players and build. Give us, you know, the excitement we want. Let us know these players. Let us know these, especially for a lot of those players, first time on stage. You think of Iconic, first big international stage for him. We got to know him. He is as cool as anyone. He is ice if you looked at his interviews. And we managed to get that because Iain was so good at it.
Yeah, there you go. Iain, you can add this to your reel. You can't, talk about the subject without mentioning, the audience, the new players, because back in the day, like when I'm saying back in the day, like 2-ish years ago, you got LAN events every couple months. There's a LAN event. There's like 6, 7, 8 of them, and that's not even counting regionals that are happening all the time. So people came in, had their experience, and then you played your regional, you played your national, and then you went into EU League, or back then in Pro League, and then moved on, got to your promotion, all of that. So you had people that actually gathered experience relatively quickly versus what you have now. And now these new players you talk about, Iconic, like the entirety of teams that actually made it. So Liquid, G2, DZ, Team One, Astralis, XZ, OXG, and BDS, like getting back to all of this and seeing what a crowd is like. Half of the players that are among all of these 8 teams have never been on a stage before. So it just shows you as a testament to the sustainability of Rainbow Six as general as an esport. So there's always new blood coming, and there's new blood being explored, a lot of talent being scouted out, and them finally getting the opportunity to show themselves off in front of a big crowd. And hopefully now that we're coming back to crowds and having more and more, I'm very excited for the next year and more of competition, because we get to see audiences again. And for those that have never been to an audience, if there's ever a Rainbow Six event anywhere near you, like even 3-4 hours flight away from you, just go to it, because it's nothing like you've ever been to. It really is. We really treat each other as like a really big but close family. So highly recommend you go through and you meet a lot of the teams, because teams, players, all of that, they want to welcome everybody to it. They still haven't gotten the proper experience, in my opinion, that they really deserve and should get. And speaking of who deserved what, or could do what, let's talk about the regions that really struggled at the major, because it's quite clear NA dominated in their own major. That's it. They did well. They were just a cut above the rest, and it showed. But APAC, EU, and LATAM, disappointing in many ways. And to preface all of this, obviously, Elevate could not make it to the event. That's one thing that you can't change. And that also adds on to Team One, although 3 of them eventually made it. Having Furia W7M playing from Mexico. I know the life of people that need visas. I completely know how unfair it is. And I think most people will echo the same thing. But I just understand that not many people actually realize what visas entail. But I'm just happy that the players got to play as close as possible, despite the fact that the US is huge and you can't really get as close as possible to all of this. But whatever, we got it. We also got Team One on the stage. They had 3 players and then cardboard cutouts also with them.
That was great.
Best moment.
Yeah.
So we're gonna show that later on. We got a photo of it to pull up. I wish I could turn around and say, "Oh, pull it up, Jamie," but we can't do that here.
You think you're Joe?
No, I do not want to be that. Not in any universe will you ever find that. But about APAC struggles overall, I want to look at Dire Wolves, which we talked about, and Chiefs. So Demo, I'm gonna kick you off on that hornet's nest, because you had a thing or two to say about these.
Yeah, APAC going into it was already a little bit weird for APAC, because there were some regulars who weren't there. You're missing Sandbox, and I think you're missing Damwon Kia. Those are 2 teams that we didn't see, that we're used to seeing at these international events now. So already that was going to give APAC a bit of struggle. Then the Elevate thing comes in. Arguably, out of those 4 teams that were going, I would have said Elevate would have been the strongest APAC team. So straight away, best APAC team going to the event is gone. So already we're not even seeing that. And then that leaves us with Dire Wolves, who for the most part are a relatively unknown quantity, because they are very new. And it's never going to be easy for them. I think we've seen that. They struggle going up against the likes of Auction and Team One. And then you look at Cyclops, who I was really surprised at, because I felt this event for Cyclops, they've went, I think, a step back from where I think they should be. I believe Cyclops coming out of SI, I think they looked good. I think everyone enjoyed watching their Siege. They go into APAC North. I don't think they delivered to where they needed to in APAC North. Then they get to this event. They just, they get into it, which, like we've mentioned, big teams there like Damwon Kia and Sandbox not making it, but Cyclops is. You expect more out of Cyclops. And I think Cyclops, with the group that they were in, they had a good shot of getting out of that group. Sure, Liquid, I think, was always going to be a given getting out of Group B. But then you look at the other 2 teams. You've got XRTROIKA, very little experience in that roster. Cyclops is a lot more. You would say that Cyclops, with the experience they've had and the international events they've been to, they should be beating out XRTROIKA. Same goes for Fury. Again, a team which has made roster changes, new experience for these players. You think about it's... We'll get to him with Fury whenever we talk about the LATAM teams. But I think Cyclops, they should have done a lot better in that group. I think they've taken a step back with where they were at, and I think the siege that they've shown us, they should be getting better with all this experience.
I don't necessarily even think that they've taken a step back. I just think that they're stood still. They've not changed anything. Like, they just try and play the same Siege they were trotting out 2 years ago, a year ago.
SI-21, yeah.
SI-21, like, they're playing the same Siege, and Siege has changed. Siege changes every single update. Changes even more now, given that there's no quarantine, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But I just think that, it's the classic, target on the back. Okay, this is a team that we really need to specifically prep for, because it's going to be very different to the other prep that we can do for other teams, which is, 70% applicable to all, if you will, because these are the general things that we're going to expect everybody to do. Cyclops don't really do all of those usually, so you have to really, target that focus. Yeah, I just don't even necessarily think they've taken a step back. I just think that they stood still. As a region as a whole, I think that Chiefs obviously
0-6
really didn't perform. They got a few rounds here and there, but I mean, is that them or is that their opponent? Just a moment in a lapse in judgment. You've just got to really look at it and think. I think that APAC looked better sort of 6 to 8 months ago when we were talking about SI and we were looking at Damwon Kia and we were thinking these guys
Sweden
can play.
Major SI APAC was like, finally, Koreans into the semi-final at Sweden. You thought, okay, finally we've got APAC rocking and rolling, and back to square one. It feels like.
Well, the teams that you expect to be here, at least if you're looking back, like you said, Sweden Major in Gävle and SI22. You're like, okay, well, here are the contenders. We know who they're supposed to be. And it seems like they stagnated in the meantime.
Yeah.
And then absolutely choked every opportunity they were given to make it to this event. So you can throw excuses all you want on Twitter, and hell, that they did. But when you got this sort of situation where you're getting multiple chances because of your position in the league, you should get it. You can't keep relying on excuses when you're supposed to come here. And we're not thinking about you qualifying. This goes to Damwon Kia and Sandbox. Like, we're not thinking about you qualifying to a major. We're thinking, can you make it beyond the quarterfinals? That's how much we're giving credit.
Them to be there. Yeah, that's it. It's just.
And even if you look at Damwon Kia, you can even say we expect them to always be out of groups. Sandbox, depending on the situation, 50-50. But Damwon Kia going out in groups, for example, that would blow your mind if it was this event. But they weren't even there to make it. So modern problems require modern solutions. So they really went for it.
It's exactly the same as what Brazil's went through at the moment as well, which is what me and Ollie have kind of seen from this stage.
I think that whilst Brazil has gone through something similar, I believe that there are still the fundamentals there. You look at Liquid, they're just at what point do they just become a journeyman org? You start talking about boxing and stuff like that, and you've always got like the up and coming champ. And to get to be that up and coming champ, you just got to fight a load of career long boxers that are never going to win the big title. They're never going to be heavyweight champion, but they're going to have 600 fights over the course of the career, and then they're going to go, 300 and 300 sort of thing. That's the point now that we've almost getting to with some of these teams, and it isn't just limited to Liquid. You look toward a team like BDS as well. You beat me to it, Milosh, but you knew where this was going. And you've got to question, you like, are these just journeyman teams, journeyman orgs that are just going to trudge along through, and every now and then they'll get close, but it never quite converts? Because that's certainly what it feels like. Liquid throughout the group stage were fantastic. And it's not that they weren't fantastic against DarkZero in the semis, or in the quarters, sorry, but it was just
the semis. Yeah,
right. Was it the semis? It was that DarkZero clutch factor. And it was almost at that point that you looked at them and went, they're probably just going to win it. Like, it just seems like the vibe is that they are going to win it at this point. And your heart's got to go out to Liquid. I mean, NIP, I don't even think that we can. We've not got long enough.
Don't get demo into that.
I'll be honest. We haven't got long enough.
All I'm going to say is Disneyland. That's the only thing I'm going to say.
The hard drives would fill up. We would fill up all the hard drives in the world before demo had finished.
Fair.
That's a team that's broken his heart.
No phase.
Phase again.
That was a big surprise.
Massive surprise.
Huge surprise.
No
MIBR.
Yeah.
So MIBR, I'm less surprised at. I'll be honest.
Are you though? Look at how they played SI. Come on.
Team One, like Team One should have never.
Team One was the biggest surprise. 100%. 100%.
I gotta say this. Team One, the fact that with all players playing in Mexico, they still made it, and then they got 3 out of 5, including their coach that stayed. Their coach stayed back in Mexico with 2 players. 3 players made it over to Charlotte, and they arrived. They beat DarkZero and Cafe Dostoevsky 7-3. Yes, they lose the series at the end, but the fact that they did all of that, this is a team that it was me, Des, and Ace that interviewed Lagonis before they traveled to Charlotte, or before they were kind of preparing to the major. and Laguna's saying, you know what, when the team imploded around the time of SI, I just looked at teams in the B series, so Serie B in Brazil, picked up 4 players because we could mold them, and we never expected we'd made it, here so quickly, but we did, and it's already a surprise. So the fact they made it to the quarters, that is an incredible achievement for Team One.
They should be proud. I think they should be.
And anything after that was just, anything after getting out of groups for them was a bonus.
Just being at the event, I think was just.
But it's credit to a couple of people. It's credit to Lagonis for a start, building the team, and then having the sort of the bottle to take these players out to America when they get the visas sorted, because I don't know if they'd been before, but typically it's not something that you do every day, is go to America, and these kids are quite young, so I would imagine they're going to be their first or second time. So, and for Lagonis to be like, nope, don't worry, come with me, like I will take you, sort of thing. Not going as like a full org and traveling as like a big safe group.
Sounds like he's the dad, and
no, but it is. But that's the kind of situation we're in here. And then big shout out to Team One for getting it done. Because while those games were being played and the team has got all the pressure of winning the group stage, behind the scenes, someone is surely sorting visas out and making sure that everything's here, everything's there, and the players will have to have involvement in that as well, all while playing the competition when they just want to be laser focused on what they're doing. I think that they've done it exceptionally well.
Yeah, given the pressure that they were under 100%. And like I said, like 20 minutes ago, as someone who knows the ins and outs of visas in general, let me tell you, it's not about I just fill in the paper and I drop it in and they call me by the end of the week or in a couple of days. That's not how it works. You can't even pay your way through it. It could be months, especially with the US. With the US visas, and this got exponentially worse with COVID and with everything happening in the world. Of course, we're not alone in this world. It really put big pressure, and suddenly even Gorgona couldn't believe it. He got his visa to go because Bulgaria is not part of the, I guess, travel system. So you can't, just like UK citizens, for example, just go online, fill out an ESTA, and then make, honestly, from what I've seen people filling out, no matter where they're from, they fill out half the form completely wrong and they still get their ESTA done. Let me tell you, if Gorgona did not fill out that application and send a bazillion papers, support documents perfectly, he wouldn't have gotten anything. And this is from experience. So he got it and literally gets the call 3 days before the event. And I sent him a message, is everything okay? He's like, I can't believe it, dude. They just call me. I don't know how all of this works. I just got a call from the embassy. Go get your visa. Get your ass to the US.
Hey, that was almost on the strings.
Honestly, that was the start of the copium as well for EU.
Oh yeah,
it was.
We're like, oh, because we were Gorg is there. Let's go.
It's a sign. It's as Gorg's got a visa, and then he goes into MPL that week and he just drops numbers. Benja's nowhere to be seen. Gorg's at the top with like 20 kills and 2 deaths or something mental, and you're just like, he's just using all that frustration that he's just gonna go and run through the entirety of America. He's not even gonna fly. He's just gonna run across the water, run across the Atlantic.
I mean, the way you say it is, if he didn't play an MPL, he would have held all that frustration until the major, and actually Heroic made it through. So that is that copium? Yes, it is. It 100% is. I'm getting high.
Whichever way you want to cut it, isn't it? How do you like to take your copium before or after?
This is a good transition, I think, to move in for EU. Yes. I think we were actually fairly confident with the 4 teams that we sent. I think we looked at the 4, and I would say, yeah. I mean, who else would you have been more comfortable going with than those 4 teams?
I mean, okay, given that caveat, like, yes, we sent our best, but I didn't think that our best were gonna do too much. That's my point.
Even BDS.
Yes, even BDS.
My money was on Liquid.
I completely agree. I thought Liquid, Oxygen Grand Final, which honestly not far away, because those semis were heated. But I mean, let's.
I mean, the show match was less heated.
Yeah, let's not look at Astralis OXG. But getting to the tournament, a lot of people would have just seen, holy hell, this actually is a possibility. So not far away from the prediction. It's just NA surfed the crowd and played it perfectly, and this is something that you can't really underestimate in this way. There's no real way to quantify it. It's like when people say, oh, this team carried over the momentum from map 1 to 2. What the hell does that even mean? Nobody knows, but you just say it because there's no way to quantify it. But it's just a vibe. It's a feeling, you have the chutzpah for it.
I think you go into that event, you look at Europe, and Group C was obviously the one we were going to be drawn to because we had not only Heroic, who at the time was the best European side, but also G2. G2 was probably the biggest question mark team. I think you could kind of look at the other teams and you could see how they would kind of go. You expect BDS get out of groups. Has Wolves shown us enough during international events to believe that they can get out of groups? I don't think at the time they did, especially with Astralis in that group, who I'm sure we'll still get on to mention. And then I think for Heroic, it was going to go one or two ways. They would go in, continue that form, stomp everyone. Wow, look at these guys. Or because it is their first big international LAN event, they would struggle. And, well, the latter happened to them. But G2 was always going to be the question mark. So many talks about this team. It's been the most talked about team this stage.
Who's G2? I thought that they had an official announcement that they were renaming themselves to Heroic GG Fan Club. Because honestly, G2 could not have made it to this major if it weren't for Heroic beating Rogue, smashing Rogue, by the way, in that day. And they wouldn't have made it through into the quarterfinals if it wasn't for Heroic, canning it until the time that even that day we were all sitting down and talking, saying
to be
if
fair,
they lose the qualification, they're gonna win the next game.
To be fair, that whole thing with the day 3 of group stages with G2 already in before they played the last 2 matches, because they knew did they play the full strength? You can use that argument against that one.
So strats, are we gonna do that again?
Wasn't Citizen playing Caveira?
Is Caveira and Border? They play Border. Do you know that? You know that's their throwaway.
Citizen was playing Ying and Cav,
and Border sucks in general, but that's
so.
Border's terrible.
I look at G2, and obviously there's going to be so much criticism. Everyone wants to hate this team. Don't know why. Everyone wants to hate them. This team, you look at the caliber of the players that they've brought in. They bring in 3 world-class players who are playing Prime Siege whenever they get picked up. You expect to see immediate results. I mean, we've seen that from G2. They got top 4. Is that not immediate results already going to a major? Like, the whole issue with G2, if you look at the end of last year, look at stage 3 of last year, they were struggling. They didn't make into the top 4. And now they've immediately, with this new roster in the first season, they've got top 4. They got out of groups. They got top 8 in their first time. I know people will probably sit there and think, I know there's a certain Swedish man who's very critical of this team. And, he'll sit there and say that for the caliber of these players in this team, it's not good enough. It's not going to be built in a day. You have to give these rosters time. You have to give these rosters time.
I would like to add to this the fact that G2 at this point have had so many changes in rosters. When you go out as a player that has won a major and won the hearts and minds of many people around the globe, and you say, we're here to build a dynasty, that is a lot for you to say.
It's only the first stage. You have to give these teams a certain period. We always judge it off 6 months. I was critical about Liquid at the time whenever they brought in Ask and Resets.
Yeah.
But then you said, Ollie, give them time. We have to give players time.
Right, and that's a great example.
Had no experience in comparison to the players on G2.
But it's not necessarily about the experience, because we know that Doki can play, we know that Alamau can play, we know that Prano can play. Like, we know these players are good that they've recently picked up. It's just about time. It just comes down to time.
Not choking every single. Stop over peaking. How many rounds were you just watching and you're like, why did you
I'm guessing you're talking about the Doki thing. The Doki.
So the Doki thing was
everybody.
The Doki thing was a miscom. The Doki thing was a miscall or a misunderstood call. It was basically just a bad communication between, I think it was between Citizen and Doki. Citizen said one thing, Doki understood it as the other, then got himself caught out on the hatch.
It's the accents.
But it's not the accents. These guys have played together for years before, man.
Come on. Hey, see, look, he's one of them. He wants G2 to fail. He wants why can we, as an EU region, right? Listen.
Who's giving Milosh a platform here?
If we're talking about EU, if we are talking about EU as a region, right, and we say that at the moment we haven't been playing well, you look at this G2 side, nobody can say that these 5 are not great players, okay?
I completely
agree. Instead of pulling them down and just getting on their backs at every single thing they do, and it's only their first stage, why are we not giving this team support? If we believe that this team can be the greatest, why not give them time? In 6 months' time, if they're still not winning championships, then sure, have at it. But in these early stages, you need to back the team. You need to back the team. You cannot go out after a team after such little time. You can't.
Harry, I would like to pull out one of your own tweets. The Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen from, was it SI 2020? That you posted, what are you? An idiot standard says, okay, I would like to post or pull that up at some point, and just to inform you that I have been shilling for EU since 2016, and they did well until they crashed and burned, and I will still be behind Europe forever because I'm legally required to. It's literally built into my contract. I cannot not root for EU in any way, shape, or form, but we have to be critical also of the mistakes that happen. It is a difference between tearing people down and then saying we expect to be better. You did well, but the mistakes were very obvious, and those should be better. So you got to work on them.
Well,
those are the same mistakes that we saw earlier. Yeah.
Are you going to give them more time? Do you think, this is it for GT, or are you?
I have to.
Then that's all we needed to hear.
I have to. What do you think I'm going to turn around and say?
Because we all know. I know that the Fresh has been a big advocate saying that they have the potential to be the best team in the world. Like, we know that. We know they can do it.
G2 is not going to sign a team. G2 Esports is not going to sign a squad that doesn't have the potential to be the best in the world. You know, Carlos, that's how it works.
I dread to think how the conversations are going to go for BDS and Heroic now, given that as rosters, they've been together as a whole for longer.
Look, I will say Heroic's major change having Uno on there actually is more substantial than you think. Uno did not perform well in terms of pure performance, pure numbers during the major. But in terms of comms, there's the things that you can't read. He still performed better than Super did at events, but that's a question for another day.
Benja let me down, I'll be honest. I thought Benja was going to hit the ground running. I think if you look at what he's done since he's came into that side, he's terrorized the EU at the moment. He's seen some of the stuff he's been doing.
What do you think happened then? Because you're
first line jitters. I don't know. Many things.
Nerves.
Mental game nerves. It's
in-ears not working.
He told me that
he did tweet saying
anybody's in-ears work. From what I was seeing, a lot of the delays that we had were literally just I can't hear.
Yep.
So even Uno is I could see everything on the camera. So
it's a learning experience for Heroic. Obviously, first big event.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough for some of these players, and it just what's the bounce back? Where do they go from here? It's not a case. I think they'll still do well online. It's the case of, are they only going to be considered an online team? That's where now we start looking at, okay, you can do this week in, week out online, but if you don't do it at the LAN events, that means nothing in reality.
Yeah, they played best of ones also in
that's the big difference.
So,
that's another layer of there's really something big going on we need to fix. So take time to rest. I think that's very important. Take a couple weeks to breathe. You guys deserve the rest, and they are resting. I saw Uno posting on Instagram and everything, so they're having fun. They're chilling. It's very necessary. But then after 10 days, 2 weeks of resting, let's come back. Let's get back into it and make sure that we can keep this rolling because there's potential. But you guys are young. You don't have as much experience, and this is true for players. This is true for talent also. Like when you go in your first ever event, you don't really know how to prepare yourself.
No.
And how to handle even the sleep schedule. Even how do you deal with jet lag? All of these things, like you have to prepare yourself a few days in advance and have the
don't
proper
forget
equipment.
Heroic's travel as well. I'm sure everyone's seen on social media what those guys had to go through.
Awful.
So
that's one of the biggest things.
US sucks for all of this. Honestly, it really does. They didn't even get like free hotel room for the night when their
the flight got cancelled. They got screwed. Yeah, I think that's something that is often goes unsaid. Is that when you're traveling to an event, when we say it's a player's first time at an event, I think a lot of people just think, oh, it's the first time they're sitting on a bench, in that sort of formation, playing in front of a crowd or playing on a stage sort of thing. But it's everything else that goes in with that. You're not at home. You're in a hotel. which it's never as comfortable as your house. Doesn't matter where you stay, unless you stay like mega. But these aren't those hotels. Then. These are very comfortable hotels usually, but they're not always. They're not as comfy as your bed at home. You've then got the travel, and the timescales involved are always quite tight because no one wants to be hanging around for days before, and no one wants to be hanging around for days afterwards. So usually you're playing, and then you're out, and that's it. And it can be very difficult. You think about times that you've taken a flight or a long trip or something like that. You're lying on a beach, you're relaxing, you're sat there by the pool drinking a margarita. That isn't this. You're literally coming out of it, and it's like bang, straight into rehearsals as talent, or bang, straight into practicing and setting up your PCs, your SSDs. You've got 2 SSDs that you've got to keep separate. There's one you can't touch. There's one that you practice. There is so much that goes into it. And I think for a team like Heroic, where that's going to be a really new experience for everyone apart from Uno, it's something that you look at and go, yeah, you can kind of get it now why, we're not seeing them at the best. But guess what? They've got it for next time. And I think that as a whole, all the trials and tribulations that they've been through in terms of travel, whilst it's probably not ideal, it was probably quite character building, probably a little bit of team building there as well. You're working together to solve a problem. You're seeing people at their absolute worst, tired, no sleep, hungry, frustrated, emotional because they just want to get home and things haven't been going there. You get to see your teammates at their absolute worst there. So you're really going to learn a lot about them. So I think as like a bonding experience, it's probably been quite good for them as a team, even if it wasn't ideal.
X, you got to see Demo at his worst at every event you guys have been to together. So that, built it up between you.
This is Demo at his best. Look at him go.
It's pretty hot.
I can never go a day without I get kicked constantly. Just poke the bear. Why don't you?
Poke the bear. Yeah. Well, finally, Wolves and BDS from EU. A lot of expectations on BDS. Wolves, not as much. They got close, but I don't think too many people, especially in this group, pegged them to, get out of it.
Just because Astralis was in there, I think that was always going to be the scary team. BDS getting out of groups, no surprise, really, for me. I think they were expected. But to be fair, after the first day, I was a little bit shaken by BDS because Astralis came in and 7-2 them. I had never seen BDS being thrown around in that fashion before. So I was a little bit worried about them. Wolves, on the other hand, they did make some mistakes. I think they played against Astralis. Was it the first day? They were sitting was it 6-4?
8-7 that went to it.
Yeah, I think they were 6-4 up against Astralis, and then he just threw it away.
Yep.
That was the day where we seen Mowgli on his first debut get 19 kills and an ace. Other than that game, Mowgli was MIA. I'll be honest. There was 3 players who I really wanted to see how they do online, and that was going to be Benja, who I don't think did. Mowgli, who, apart from one game, I don't think did, and Iconic, who certainly did. Those are the 3 rookies for me that I wanted to see how they perform. And for Mowgli, apart from that first game, he just couldn't click at all. And Wolves as a whole, I don't know what it is. It feels as if this team has been kind of stuck in time for quite a while. It seems to be the same siege, similar to Cyclops, just the same thing over and over again. And no real change. They bring in Mowgli, who, as we know, has so much talent as this young French gunner. But it just seems to be, it's a case of they just let Mowgli off, just go do what you want. And Mowgli just goes and does what he wants. And we know that that's always going to be a risky style of siege, because as soon as somebody catches on Mowgli and they have Mowgli's number, Mowgli can go 19-2. We know that. But then we can also see him go 2-19. That's the trade-off, and that's a big risk for a team if you want to play that type of siege.
You got Wolverhampton Wolves in X. Was this a surprise to kind of see them picked up by?
I was surprised.
The esports division of a football team in the UK.
It came out of nowhere, didn't it? At least for us, obviously, it'll have been. They've not just woken up one day and gone, we'll have them. I imagine it's something that they've taken a little bit of time to decide. But it's great that they got picked up just before the event. Obviously, perfect timing for Wolves as an org, to pick up a team. And it's like, oh, what have you got on the horizon? Oh, we're actually going to America next week. Brilliant. It's probably a big selling point for a
Michael
team that's
Moriarty,
LFO.
by the way, the esports director. at Wolves, who is a veteran of the UK esports scene, especially in Counter-Strike back in the day. Even was a journalist with him way back when it was like 6-7 years ago when we were covering Counter-Strike events. So, he's done a great job here. He's picked up a team that has a lot of potential, but I think given the situation, Wolves come in, they just got an org. They can't believe that they actually made it to the event. So maybe it's possible that now that they don't have to worry about their livelihoods, that they would be able to focus a bit more.
It's pressure's off, isn't it? Without being too sort of ruthless about it, you've been picked up, fantastic. The org is going to get represented at the major, win-win for everybody. And as a team, you've proved yourself. You've done the hard work. You've put yourselves in a position where you are hireable almost, which is essentially what this is. And you can now just look to build forward and go, right, phew, got that one out of the way. Let's take this experience, build as a team. Again, you've got players like Mowgli that are brand new to a LAN and stuff like this. So at least at this sort of level, so you're going to be going, yep, that's good enough for us. Happy with that. Let's focus on stage 2 now and really start to make a bit of a name for ourselves, because they're that team, aren't they? And again, we talk about journeyman teams. I don't think that Wolves have ever particularly impressed me with the style of Siege that they play. I think it is just, it's pretty bread and butter stuff. It's classic EU Siege.
Yeah. Yes, Demo.
I have to agree. Well, I just don't think I've ever watched Wolves for all the different organizations they've been on, because there's been a few orgs that this kind of core has been through, and I don't think I've ever sat down once and thought, wow, they are that team. That's never really struck me. I've had that with other teams in EU, but yeah, I don't know if I've ever felt that from this team.
Well, on from Wolves to a team that I think for a lot of people came out of nowhere. We were chatting with Jesse about all of this over the past week. Of course, our NAL colleague, and he's saying, you know what, Astralis, they really started picking up steam by the end of last year, but nobody expected them to go this hard. And here they are. Iconic comes in, plays incredibly well with the squad. Obviously, we talk about Iconic because he is the loud one. It's just you feel the energy. He really is the energy is there. Absolutely love it. And the man has gone through so much with this incredible squad that for many people, like I said, came out of nowhere. And they got to a grand final that was incredibly competitive between both teams, DarkZero and Astralis. At any point in time, could have swung to Astralis' side. So this team topped their group. I mean, tied with BDS. Like you said, they went up against BDS in day 1, smashed them 7-2. Granted, later on and come day 30,
BDS on the reverse,
BDS on the reverse, exactly 7-2. So you could see that these two teams are very equal. Astralis, they're the young bloods. They're going up against, if there's any team that you would consider the kind of the old guard, it's BDS. This is the old guard, kind of in form and in shape, and still somehow swinging and doing work. And they're giving them a run for their money. They're beating them. They're going deeper than they did in the tournament, which means that if you've been here sitting collecting paychecks for the past few years in Siege, whatever, watch out. There's always some younger player that is just better than you, is going to come in, swing at your spot, and do better than you, probably.
I think that's what NA have done really well at as well, is you think back to maybe 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, and it always felt like, obviously Siege was a lot smaller then in terms of, the popularity, the size of events we were having and all this sort of stuff. But it just felt like NA was a bit exclusive to sort of get into. And I think that the teams and the sort of competition suffered as a result. We had that sort of reign of G2 and Penta dominance, and it was like NA were just nowhere to be seen, sort of thing. And it was great time to be an EU fan. And I think part of that was like almost a lack in talent sort of thing, and a lack of players on the up and up. And now you look at NA, and I feel like they've got so many young prospects and teams that you wouldn't necessarily have expected or even seen. You look toward XRTROIKA, ton of Brazilians on the side. You wouldn't have seen that a couple of years ago because it was all NA. And now people are sort of migrating into different roles. You've got people going into sort of analyst, coach, all the org side roles and all this sort of stuff. And it's just sort of spreading it out a little bit and letting room for the new trees to grow.
True.
And I think that Astralis and you can talk about iconic, fantastic showing, for such a big stage, and the pressure of playing at home as well, when you know that the crowd is going to be either really on your side or really not on your side, is always something to weigh into it as well. I think he did fantastically. There was a clutch that Forrest got, and it was in the finals, and I was never has my flabber been more gasted than that moment. Incredible player. J90, fantastic as well. Just, all round really, really good performance. And I think a nice surprise as well. It's always nice to see teams that we don't watch every week. I don't watch NA every single week. I'll dip in here and there whenever I'm awake at, a stupid hour. But it's just great to see.
I'm really happy for Shuttle. I know like people don't usually talk about Shuttle, and Astralis doesn't really come up in conversation, at least from what I've seen. But Shuttle has been around for ages in competition from my days. Like he's almost 23. He'll turn 23 very soon. He basically started playing the moment he turned 18. So those were in my days playing with what was Rogue in the day, and he's been always pretty consistently playing well. He's been doing well, and now he's getting further than he did in the past. The man has a lot of promise, and it's just great to see these sorts of players that finally get the recognition and the positions in tournaments that I always believed that they deserved. And here is now the squad. Really well done.
Yeah, you think back to a couple of years ago, whenever NA, it was two teams. It was Evil Geniuses at the time, and it was that Rogue roster. Those were the two that we seen just come in, was there. Sometimes, maybe Cloud9 back then maybe would have got a shout, but it was only ever just Evil Geniuses and Rogue for a long time for NA. And now you look at the pool of talent that NA has. You think about the 4 teams that went to this event, all great teams. Think of the teams that weren't even here, that were left behind. No Sonics after what they did at SI. No SSG. You think about how consistent that roster is.
Literally the team that won the whole tournament. They weren't there in NAL even. It's crazy to look at.
You think about who they've left out, and this region, these orgs that have came in and that they've invested in these young talents. It's working out so well. Exit. Think of the roster they've just built.
True.
Apart from really Kino and Yoga, there isn't really any experience on that roster. You've got Spirits, we see him at an SI, Parabellum, of course, and you've got the 2 Brazilians there. It's insane to see what Exit went on to do. Astralis, some of those players, DP Fire, never heard of him until recently. You forget Jane, I know he was with that kind of Struck core, wasn't he? Whenever Jane, I know NJR, people were kind of talking about that duo for a while. Iconic, who was on the Sonics roster for a while, didn't work out for him. How does he bounce back? Blows him out of the water with what he's been able to do. Shuttle, you said, God, just Forest. What a team! What a roster! I've thoroughly enjoyed watching them play Siege, and the energy they've brought, the hype that they've brought. I love their style of Siege. They're very fast. They're my kind of team because they remind me a little bit of FaZe, and all he knows is I can sit here and talk about FaZe all day. They're a team. If they see an opening, they'll take it. That's the kind of Siege I like. Is teams who are adaptive, and also teams who always want to try and look for something. Those are my favorite types of teams and my favorite style of Siege. So seeing a team like that, they just took to me instantly. So yeah, very, very impressed with Astralis.
Shout out to the NA talent scouts, by the way, because they are doing an incredible job. Pay them more because they're really finding the gems out there. Whoever you are out there that is finding this talent in North America, you're doing a great job. Can you lend us a hand in Europe? We would love to have a bit of that because Europe is going through what NA went through when Europe was on top. But you know what? It's a great time. We didn't even touch on Pambazu, for example. Pamba, incredible player.
Haven't touched the newers either.
True. NJR did great. Hyper has been a player that played for ages and he's still on top. The man just doesn't stop.
Yeah, that DZ team has turned into TSM very much. Like you've got the 2 players who are supporting, that being Canadian and Eclipse. And then you've got the 3 gunners. You've got Pamba, you've got Hyper, and of course NGR. Those 3, me and Ollie have talked about this team in depth. And if those 3 are showing up, DZ stump. And
what happens next major? X, like now, this has all been shuffled up very quickly to move on to kind of the new changes that we have in the game upcoming. But this is kind of shaking things up globally in preparation for stage 2 and the summer major.
I wouldn't even be worried about the major. I'd be worried about the stages. I'd be worried about stage 2 for each region, because all of the teams that we've been speaking about today are going to now go home. Like you say, they're going to have a couple of weeks off, and then stage 2 is going to start in the next month. So all of a sudden they're going to be playing once again. Now they've just played an event. They've had a bit of a break. The teams that haven't made it to the event have likely been grinding.
Great point.
They've already had their break, and they're going to start about now absolutely smashing it in anticipation of what's to come. Stage 2 for me is even more exciting, given that we've got 2 new operators coming in again. This is the first time this has happened in just so long, where we've literally seen an operator only a handful of days ago, and all of a sudden it's like, yep, you want Sens? Bang, in the game, available to play.
Lion and Finge.
Well, that's it,
wasn't it? No, it would have been
Chimera.
Would not have been Grim Sky with Clash and Maverick. Or no, it would have been Nomad and Kaid. Them 2 would have been at it. Because that was last time we had the double operators.
No, we're not saying that. We're saying when you've literally seen the reveal on the Sunday, and then on the Tuesday it's on the TTS, and then the stage starts in a couple of weeks.
I thought you were talking about just having
Maestro,
2 operators.
No.
Maestro and Alibi were added immediately into competition as they were in, and that was the last time, because at that point we started having the issues with Lion, and he was taken out of rotation, and basically I prompted Ubisoft to step in and say, okay, we're gonna add the quarantine, I guess, to new operators. That actually is perfect, because that's our next topic before we, as we get ready for more segments that we have on for today. The recap of a lot of the changes. First up, like you said, in terms of competitive play, now we got full operators. The moment they're shown on the screen, you're going to see them being played competitively for the stage coming right after. The moment they're released, that is it. Some minor stuff that are added into the game, but I'm sure will make the lives for observers and players a bit easier, which is normally you request a timeout, and it's up to for the team to like type into the chat, and that has caused some issues obviously over the past few months. I think it's quite clear. But now you'll be able to directly request a timeout in game in your customs. So if you have your observer, you can play as a player, as a team. You just press your escape key and you put in request timeout. And the moment that's in, it's immediately recorded. So nobody can turn on and say, oh, it was exactly the second or whatever. It's just seen in game, and that's it. So I'm very happy that those things are in.
Streamlines it.
Incredibly. Now, Sense is being added as our operator, of course, our Belgian operator into the game. This is our second segment, by the way, just to let everybody know. It's time for the R6 cap, the recap, kind of the changes that are coming to the game in general, but also to esports. So again, Sense added in. All the Viper players out there from Valorant are going to step in and say, "Yo, this is great."
I don't even know what that is.
The
English, Milosh. English.
What do you think I speak? I don't know. English people don't even speak English. Let's be honest. So Sense added into the game, which TTS literally has been released 4 hours ago, because of when we're recording this. So by the time this is out, it would have been a few days, and it's great to see the operator. New gun being added, low damage, 50 rounds in the magazine, also holograms, and the way that they deploy and interact with so many things. I'm loving it. I'm really a fan of this.
I looked at the operator and I already have got about a million different things in my head about how they can be used. You look at the gadget, I automatically think just cutting off 2 doors at once, which typically for a lot this is going to be an execute orientated operator. We know that, similar to what I think we've seen from Ying. Is that was the last, I think, big operator that we've seen rely on final few seconds, toss in utility. So I think this is very along the same lines. The biggest thing this does is I see big, long, open areas. This is going to be perfect. Smoke grenades are good, but they don't cover everything. We know that. This gadget, however, can do so. It has a very long area of a reach. One thing, go for a simple one. Think of Clubhouse. You think of a top floor defense on cash. Being able to smoke off not only the red door that leads into the red stairs, but also the radio door that leads on the cache. You can smoke off both of them with one projectile. Obviously, as was, back there, as it is now, trying to get both of those doors smoked off is a little bit tricky because then you have to try and peek one, peek the other. You can get shot, whatever it is. This operator makes that so much easier. So I can see a lot of valuable ways that people start to try and figure out with this operator. And yeah, I'm excited to see how they'll do.
I like the fact that we're getting this at the same time as Azami as well, because I feel like there's a lot of synergy there in terms of the Azami blocking up drone holes, little windows that, Maverick hole gets made, bang the Azami onto it, and just stop that sort of execute from happening. I always go in with an open mind. I think I've followed far too many updates at this point to sort of prejudge and already make a decision about it. I wasn't the biggest fan when I saw it, I'll be honest. As soon as it was explained that it didn't damage you at all, and as soon as we saw an attacker walk through it, I was a little bit more for it, because obviously not damaging anything is a good thing. Like, we don't just want to replace toxic babes. And equally, I liked the fact that it felt like you couldn't see your hand in front of your face as an attacker if you were in it, which is really cool, because it's not like you're going to sneak through and then be able to act on it. Now, obviously, yellow pings are a thing, and that needs to be taken into consideration a little bit. You could just, this is going to work both ways, essentially. And if the defenders have more info, or the attackers have more info, one of them is going to come out on top. Could be the return of a bit more of a shield meta. If we see a bit more Monty play, if we start thinking toward these more execute-based setups where you are going to bring, this sort of, this curtain, if you will. I think that's, I don't know its name yet. What is it? The hologram?
Don't tell me we're not calling it the curtain.
What's the official? I don't know what the official name is yet.
I don't even know. For me, I'm just going to call it the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's how it's going to go.
One thing that I liked,
the curtain wall. Yeah, Mr. Gorbachev, what do you want to say?
One thing that I really liked is the fact that if you imagine a sort of LED strip light, the way that it works is there's like a hologram every half a meter or so.
Yeah, so it drops projectors, basically.
Yeah, so you can impact one of those. You can't shoot it, you can impact it, or C4 it, or just explode it in any way, or the attackers can do the same. And you can essentially create a door in the wall, which I really liked. I thought that was a nice little edge, that you didn't have to deal with the whole thing.
Yeah,
you could just choose to deal with certain sections of it. Exactly. And I think that the attackers in time will deal with or use that to their advantage as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's one of the most like kind of balanced thing. Obviously, we haven't like seen it yet. This is just off of looks. But looking at it, the way that you're able to interact with it, when, like you say, attackers, defenders, they both can destroy bits of it. You can also, as a defender, finally we get to see impacts being used for something other than, hey, maybe I'll do some chip damage against the person by chucking it, at a side of a wall. So it's good to see this sort of interaction, but also it's inadvertently, well, not inadvertently, it's done on purpose, but like Warden getting an extra buff to him now that he's able to see through all of those shenanigans. Holograms do not impact him. He's able to see through them just like it does with flashes or all of that. So good for all the Warden players out there to be able to deal with it. And like you said, all two of them, but those two, they probably have a pretty high win delta, I'll tell you that.
They mean a lot.
They do mean a lot. We appreciate you all two Warden players out there. And on top of all of this, like you said, Azami being added into competitive. I mean, look, Azami is a game changer in so many ways. So I can't wait to see how she actually kind of drops in. The big thing about Siege is being able to destroy and mold the site and the map to your liking. And now you have an extra layer where you can actually build up. I won't take castle into it or adding shields or whatever. This is literally any way you like, you can do it with her kunais.
Yeah, I think Azami's going to be good for just cutting off sightlines. I think that's like the main thing that at the moment I'm hearing from pro play. That's where it's good for. I don't think she's going to be played like every round. I don't think she's going to be that much of like a game changer because keep in mind, getting rhythm still quite easy. A lot of the times, if you're like blocking up a doorway, you can just punch it. It's going to be quite easy to get rid of it.
Yep.
It's going to be good to still burn up a bit of utility.
Yeah.
Somebody using some Sophia impacts or nays, whatever it is that you need to use. I think she'll still have her place. I just don't think it'll be as big as what I think during the initial reveal that everyone was saying, oh my god, oh my, the whole hype like around it. It is always like that. So I think she'll just be in a good spot. I think
the thing I really like about this time in the We Got Sense coming straight away is that there is no like secretive like, oh, is anyone hearing like how teams are scrimming with the new operator and all this sort of.
We're just gonna see it.
Like we're either going to see it or we're not. It's going to get banned out, and then we can go, it's probably quite good, or it's going to get played, and then we're going to see other things come through. It's important that we get that instant, and it's harder work for the devs almost because they've got to react a lot quicker now because typically they were working like 3 months behind on the new operator with comp in mind. Obviously with regular play it was different, but with comp in mind they were working 3 months behind. Now they're working almost 3 months ahead, even more than what they already were, to make sure that these things are working and stuff. So for me, it takes you back to that exciting time of Siege where it's like, the reason I love this game is because the game I can load up and play whenever I want is the game that I watch. Exactly. And that is what brought me to Siege. And it is what will always have brought me to Siege. That is the only reason I started playing this game, is because I could watch Pro League and then I could play ranked, and it was basically the same.
In terms of everything that you have access to, yeah.
In terms of settings and guns and what I've got access to, yes. Yeah, I could play secure area if I wanted to, but if I wanted to play diffuse, I could play bomb, and I could literally just play this game. Yep. And I think that it's important we keep that as one-to-one as possible. Obviously, going to 7 isn't ideal because it's too much time for people that want to play casually, but I think that it's a huge step.
Well, new things, more steps that are, items and things that are being added into the game. Shooting range. And actually, from what we've seen, again, someone who also plays Valorant, it's good to see the shooting range being added in. All operators are unlocked for everybody. Even if you don't own the operators, they're all unlocked for you. So you can come in and try them out. Thank God. That's something that I think stopped a lot of players from like kind of exploring new operators and what to do with them. How many times you just see people asking you, oh, I saved up, I banked up so much renown, I don't know which operator to get, what do you recommend? You're like, just hop in now into the shooting range and try things out and see what you think.
No more me asking, oh, could you play this operator? I don't have them. Test them. You'd have them because they're so good.
Yeah. I can finally buy Finge and try this LMG.
Stop.
Which doesn't come just yet. They have made announcements saying that LMGs are going to be nerfed, but not yet. We just have to hold on for a bit longer.
Let's hope for the best. Also, for new players coming in, we have an operator guide, which is something that, for example, Overwatch players, also Valorant players know. You can just click a button on your keyboard or on your console, and then you can just open up a sheet that shows you this is in game. You don't have to be in the menus or anything for it. And you can just take a look. What does this button do? What does this ability look like? You got a video to kind of show you what it's like. Show, don't tell. That's the most important thing in this sort of way. And that will kind of open up a lot of barriers that were set in front of players because, competitive games like Siege, they have very high barrier to entry just off the fact that they are competitive games. So I'm very happy this is something that will democratize the game to more people, hopefully bring people back. And speaking of which, if you are someone that owns the game and is playing in year 7 and you got some friends that you want to bring in that haven't played in the year, no problem. You can bring them in. And if you got your full stack, you're all playing together, you get rewards for bringing them in. They get them too. And if they went with their own friends on the other side that haven't played themselves and are like, oh, I played Siege with my buddy Jared last week, do you want to kind of jump in, George, and we can play together, or the whole crew? And you can do that and get more things for yourself, rewarding players for just coming back, because the game has changed so much since so many players might have kind of not played in year 4, year 5 until today, this is the perfect time to step back into the game because it has changed for the better in so many ways. And I'm very happy about it. Also, with TDM being added, it's another way to kind of warm up and get yourself
Good
into
warm up,
it.
really, really good.
Yeah, close quarters added to the rotation, which is a TDM only map. We saw the development team talking about it also in their video, saying, "Yo, this is there's destructible walls, the whole shebang." So you are supposed to engage with the environment and prepping you for it. So I'm very happy. I hope there'll be more of this in the future. New narrative stuff that are added into Siege, identity, privacy, more things like that. For example, the streamer mode and all of that added in. That does not impact, though, the ability of the anti-cheat to find you. So don't worry about it, or for people to report to you if you have done something naughty in the game. Also, if there are people and cheaters obviously that abuse friendly fire and reverse friendly fire, now there's multi-match punishment, like 20-30 games of automatic reverse friendly fire added to you if you start abusing the system, which is awesome. Match cancellation as the system has had an overhaul and a change, and even the dev team themselves said we're gonna change this over time. Here's a kind of 2.0 change of it. More will be done in the future, so give your feedback on it. Also, two big things, and I don't know if it slipped under people's radars, but first, secondary weapons re-added to operators that, for example, gained the gun 6, but they lost a gun before. Now they have 2 secondaries and a gun 6, just in case you don't want it. And very important, the option to reduce and or remove screen shake completely. That, oh my god, thank god. When I saw that, I was over the moon. That is so good. Finally, for a competitive game, this is exactly what we needed.
Yeah, pro players are absolutely buzzing with that change. So it's do we need to say more? It's just, I think everyone has experienced it. Everyone, I'm sure, who's played Siege has at one point tried to kill somebody and then bang, a fuse charge, bang, 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 explosion. What can you do? So everyone knows it's going to be good. So you can't complain. If you want to be realistic, it's there for you. But if you want to win your gunfights as a defuse your team, then it's a no-brainer.
I have nothing left to say.
You're just happy.
It's screen shake. Like, I just don't want to see it complained about ever again at this point.
Just start
it off. It's the questions have been answered. It's off. Put it to bed.
If you miss your shots now, you missed your shots.
You're just bad.
No excuses.
Yeah.
Also, the Glaz got a bit of a change, which you didn't see it coming. Glaz now free speed. We've seen before that free speeds can absolutely ruin this game. Just one little change of free speed, they can be crucial. And Glaz is a decent operator in my opinion. And now I think he's gotten even better because, yes, the DMR is going to be a bit clunky to use. Still good, still decent. Just hit your shots, forehead, easy.
Yeah.
He also gets a bearing 9 as his secondary.
Iron Curtain, Glaz, 3-speed, bearing 9.
Like having the bearing 9, I think is known as just as taking him up a tier 100%. Just having that SMG as, sure, DMR is nice and all, but then just going with the bearing is sometimes as good as like an SMG in defense. It's very, very good.
It's comparable to something like a Roni or something, isn't it? In terms of mag count and all that sort of stuff. It's not too different. So yeah,
keep your eyes on Glaz. Honestly, keep your eyes on him.
Yeah, flank watches, in my opinion, it's not really the time or place for a 3-speed. Typically, you don't want them to be able to make that adjustment quickly, and that was one of the arguments for Ash ACOG was that you could watch flank because of your utility. It was burn or whatever. And then you could use the ACOG, and then you could still get into the fight quickly. So just got to think about that a little bit and see how it goes.
Of course, a lot of this will depend on the map because I'll be honest with you, I've been hearing Glaz is good for the past 3 years.
It's going to be a nightmare in Clubhouse. Absolute nightmare for rotating around.
Honestly, show me. I'm ready for a meta change. I need to see it, and this is the perfect time to have these changes because there will be so much that was thrown at you, between Rooney and Sense, and you have operator changes and such like Glaz, for example. And now, all right, throw it all in, see what we get. This is what I need to see.
And we have Warden. So there is an operator that can all this. Everyone knows Ying Glaz meta back in 2018. Warden wasn't around.
Yeah,
Warden gets played like quite a bit in those maps and the situations.
His pick rate's going to go up. 100%. So yeah, see how it goes. I'm hopeful.
Happy about it, X. Who do you think is gonna abuse our new operators most? You know, we got Sense, we got Aruni. You think LATAM's gonna warm up to? Aruni Azami. Do you think some region's gonna abuse it more than another? Maybe will LATAM actually like learn how to use ops very quickly?
I'm trying to think about who the typical like early adopters are, because you know whenever anything comes out, there's always players or teams that sort of gravitate, but I don't think there's any like one team that you could say that would always, you know, look to just play new stuff apart from FaZe. But I mean that Demo, we both know that they just close their eyes when it's operator pick time and they just go, that'll do. Like, they don't care. Thing is, with 6-pick, you don't really need to care anymore. The set or 7th pick or whatever the heck we're calling it, the fact that you can repick during the rounds an attacker, it's I believe that we're approaching an attacker-sided siege. I'll be honest with you.
We've been on that trajectory for the past few months.
We are seriously on a not a dangerous path, but we are on a path to attacker-sided siege. I saw a tweet. I don't, you know, it's not necessarily a statistic, but the tweet was along the lines of there was basically 1 round difference in the major between how many attacking rounds were won and how many defending rounds were won. And the one that had the more, it was basically 50-50 in a large sample size like that.
That's events how they are in general, actually. They always go 50-50.
Yeah. And I mean, that says a lot for how much teams bring to events, but it also says a lot considering where we were 2 years, well, I don't know, year ago, 18 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, even a year ago, yeah.
Year ago, where it was just a utility soak meta and there was just maps where you were just expecting 5-1 halves, 4-2 halves. It was the norm for the defenders. So with these changes, yeah, probably time for the defenders to get a little bit of love next time and maybe a couple of bans thrown in as well. I think there's a lot of teams out there that love an extra couple of bans.
Speaking of things that some people absolutely love, we're talking about, you know, people coming back into the game. There's been a lot of collaborations that the game or Rainbow Six has done with, you know, other games like Gris, for example, beautiful game that, you know, has skin in it for the CZ3A1, the Scorpion Evo that Ollie uses. You also have, you know, as a Casa de Papel that was added, you know, with skins for, you know, Habana and for Vigil.
Rick and Morty, my
past.
favorite.
Rick and Morty, you know, you got to have 200 IQ at least to understand those skins. But we got, you know, big collaborations. We got collaborations also with great Japanese artists that, and also Rainbow Six artists or people that are more endemic to Rainbow Six that have had skins added. Now, for all the JRPG fans out there, they're getting Yakuza skin in the game, or a set of skins. There's been a lot of talk about. I personally have not played Yakuza, but I do own a few of the games. My brother is a huge Yakuza fan. So when I texted him and told him, yo, by the way, Rainbow Six is adding Yakuza skins. Hibana and Echo are getting character skins basically in Rainbow Six. He's like, yo, that is actually really sick. You know, you get the vibe of, I might actually reinstall the game to just check this out.
But are they as good as a pickle?
Okay, tangent, because we love those. Do you have a favorite type of pickle?
I don't eat pickles.
What?
Not the piccolo?
Is that what you call them? Piccolos?
Demo loves the pickle Rick skins.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
I love all of them.
They're one of the few green-lighted, non-Pro League approved skins that are actually allowed in the Staff Hub.
What, Staff Hub has rules like that too?
Staff Hub's been terrorized for those skins.
It just takes the typical rules for skins and stuff. So Demo stood there with like Pickle Rick on his head. And then he's like, he usually likes to cry at people that slam him if they're wearing like a Wimbastian glove or something like that.
No, but they're the worst kind of.
That's true. How good is Fresh at the Hub? Because he always says he's really good.
I can check for you.
Fresh is pretty good at Siege, to be fair to him. But I tell you what, me and Fresh are an absolute diamond duo.
Are you? We
have never lost a duo game.
How many?
Where we've just queued together? Quite a few. It's not like we've played one and just said, we'll dine out on that stat for the rest of our life. We've genuinely got 100%.
So we've had 217 people play inside the hub.
Yeah.
All-time leaderboard, he is currently ranked 214th.
How many
Fresh
are in
doesn't.
there?
There's 217. He's 214th.
Okay.
My 215th.
No, I don't even know where you are.
That's crazy. So Fresh's problem starts when he plays in a team, because he's obviously got a very analytical mind. He's got a good experience. He's got a really, really strong idea about how he wants this game to not even be played, but how he wants the game to
Fresh is
look.
good. Fresh is good.
Yeah. How
Like,
is it supposed to be played?
He wants it to look a certain way, as well as win, as well as everyone gets on, as well as like he ends up the superstar. So he's a bit of a nightmare in a stack. I'll be honest with you.
I don't
he
blame
gets a
Fresh.
bit toxic.
I don't blame Fresh. That hub does things to people. I think I've lost 2 inches on my hairline.
Let's be honest though. Let's be honest. Fresh literally will get on and play Ranky till 4 a.m. every single night. So whose fault is it at the end?
Oh, he does it to himself. He does it to himself. To be honest, Milosh, I'm not sure that Fresh is going to be owned by the time this show comes out. I reckon he'll still be in an airport lounge somewhere.
In Charlotte, isn't he?
He'll just be in an airport lounge just somewhere.
Oh my God! See, this is. It took him how long to get to the US? He's gonna spend as much time just traveling back to the UK as he actually spent working in Charlotte.
He's getting the heroic treatment. That's what he's getting.
Oh my! Actually already it's way worse. I'm just glad that they're being taken care of. I'm sure our usual wonderful talent manager, you guys know, Kinga, has been taking care of the team and making sure everybody's got what they need. So yeah, kudos to the people that really make it happen, because if it weren't for the managers and the talent managers, people that deal with our shit, no two ways around it, we wouldn't be able to perform to the best of our abilities.
99% of the time, the only thing that any of us do when anything goes wrong is send one WhatsApp message and then post about it on Twitter. And then we wait and the problem's fixed and that's it. You just move on. Yes. So
hey, Kinga, can you get me some chalky milk? And X just gets his chalky milk in 10 minutes.
Like don't joke. Don't joke about
Kinga,
things like
could
that.
I get a can of Coke? Oh, here's a 6-pack.
Yes.
Like it's it's that kind of vibe.
Yeah. So I'm very happy. I hope that Fresh and the rest actually get to make it, because apparently Hap did make it to the Netherlands. So kudos. That's one part done. And I think this is kind of a good spot for us to call it a first half. We really got a lot to talk about, and I'm glad that we got to spend so much time actually talking about the major. And honestly, if you would leave us here for the next 6 hours, we would still be here talking about every single detail. But there's not enough time in the world to discuss the I guess fallout from major events like this. This is what EU League, NA League is all about, and you'll be seeing all this talked about over the next few weeks as hopefully we prepare ourselves for stage 2. For all those that are joining us right now, thank you so much for watching. This is only the first set of 2 halves of this episode. X Demo, thank you so much for joining me and talking about some pretty important stuff, not gonna lie about it. The entire 6 Charlotte Major and Operation Vector Glare and what is coming with it all. Thanks again to our sponsor, Predator Gaming, that make it all happen. Hopefully you'll be seeing us in the studio very soon talking about it. Gents, I'd love to see you in the studio one day for a big recording day. So, hey, who knows? Putting it up in the air. Thank you so much. Let's get ready for our interview. That was esports news and the R6 cap we got on the CCTV and Reddit droning coming up in the second half. So don't go anywhere.